Commander-in-Chief of Russian Special Forces in Syria was killed in an artillery strike on a military compound.
Here's a summary of the article.
Syria.com needs to review the security of your connection before proceeding. Requests from malicious bots can pose as legitimate traffic. Occasionally, you may see this page while the site ensures that the connection is secure.
This post received a score of 6,000, with an upvote ratio of 98%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Not too many armies can boast about losing their senior commanders in two different wars at the same time. Well done, Russia.
Since the end of the Vietnam War, the U.S. has lost 2 generals to enemy actions. LT General Timothy Maude on 9/11 and Maj General Harold Green in Afghanistan in 2014. Like it just doesn't happen much anymore if you treat your generals like the gigantic resource of military knowledge and training that they are.
I think the larger factor is that NATO generals allow their officers a lot more latitude to make decisions and enact agreed goals, so they don't need to turn up to the front lines to make sure that low-level orders are being followed correctly.
US also allows frontline grunts a lot more latitude to make decisions and enact agreed-upon goals. There's an old joke about the American Army. A general shows up at a battlefield and points to the nearest lieutenant, "Go take that hill," and points to a nearby hill. A few hours later, the general returns and is surprised that the hill is taken. "Lieutenant, how did you take that hill?" The lieutenant replies, "Sir, I told my sergeant to take the hill."
It's like the maths question, answer, sergeant, set up a 40-feet flagpole.
I haven't followed the current situation in Syria. How has Russia not pulled out resources for Ukraine?
It has pulled most of them, including most or all of the air assets that were Russia's primary contribution. They haven't conducted any operations in Syria since the war in Ukraine started, to my knowledge. Russian ground forces were only there to defend Russian positions and never went on the offensive. I imagine this guy was there as an advisory role to the SAA.
Greater than Russian ground forces were only there to defend Russian positions and never went on the offensive. That's because for ground forces Russia used Wagner when going on the offensive. That way they had plausible deniability about anything that happened and they could still control and dictate what Wagner did. Just because they weren't uniformed Russian ground forces doesn't mean they weren't fighting on behalf of the Russian government.
That reminds me of when, I don't know how much of it is true, but apparently 200 to 300 attackers were killed and no Americans were killed. Pretty much the US called in airstrikes and choppers and had their way with the attackers. I recall there being leaked audio of Wagner soldiers calling back to Russian troops pretty much crying that they got their ass handed to them but there was nothing they can do, and they didn't do anything afterwards. Russia literally just uses Wagner Group to wash their hands of any wrongdoing.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.